Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I just wanted to kind of break down to you guys how I invest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency assets. But before I even started that, I wanted to talk to you guys on how I really started really getting into crypto. I'm pretty sure you guys remember like when Bitcoin first came out, unfortunately, like many of us, I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it and I regret it every day of my life. But what is a life? What is life without regret? But I remember my friend told me when it was close to 20,000, he was like, "Hey man, you hear about Bitcoin?" And I'm like, "Man," and I learned investing from old school guys, so I thought cryptocurrency is like one of the worst investments anybody would do. I would never recommend, at that time, I would never recommend cryptocurrencies to anybody. I always tell them it was imaginary money because, when I looked up the definition of cryptocurrencies, it was imaginary money. But you could kind of debate that about, any type of money, right? Um, it all depends who's backing it, right? So I ignored Bitcoin, and when it dropped from basically almost 20,000 to 3,000, that was kind of like me telling myself, that's a good thing I didn't invest in it because it's a Ponzi scheme, it's a scam, whatever. And then it goes from in the low 3,000s to 13,000, and then it dropped from 13,000 to 4,000, and then it goes from 4,000 to 41,000, and then it goes, it does these crazy drops and crazy recoveries that I couldn't allow myself to see an opportunity like to make money and not execute on it, right? Like, so I started investing into Bitcoin, and I've made and other cryptocurrencies. Like one of the cryptocurrencies I invested was Shibu coin, and I made I think I made like 2,000 or $1,000. I can't remember what it was because it was so long ago. On $700, I made like $1,000. And so it was really good. I was kind of happy because I made some money on it, and then I really started getting into Bitcoin, studying the drops and stuff like that. And I'm invested into Bitcoin now, and I like it. Not going to lie to you, I like Bitcoin. It's very volatile. However, you need to understand this is a risky asset. Bitcoin is a risky asset. They're extremely risky. They're an extremely risky asset. They're very volatile. So of course you don't want to go in there and buy Bitcoin, right? It depends on your appetite of risk. But you don't want to go in there and buy like an Apple. You don't want to go in there and buy like a Amazon, Nvidia. The reason why you don't want to buy it like that is because Bitcoin, is a risky asset because what is really backing Bitcoin? Like for example, you got Nvidia making $100 billion in free cash flow, a year. That kind of crazy. You have Apple making $100 billion in free cash flow. You have Microsoft making 73 billion. You got Google making 73 billion. These that's the difference between Bitcoin and with stocks. These stocks, are actual companies that are generating value. Even if the stock, let's say for example, if the stock market made Apple drop all the way down to $1, everybody and their mom, everybody will be buying Apple at $1 if the business wasn't going out of business. If their business was fine and they weren't going out of business, because if they were going out of business, that's the only reason that they would drop to $1. But let's say if something crazy like there's some type of glitch in the system happened and you was able to buy Apple for $1, you would put everything you had into Apple because you're buying a company that is giving you great dividends, and they're generating a lot of cash, and they have little debt. One of the that's why it's one of the if you looked at my video of the characteristics of great companies, that is your best example of a great company, a company that's generating revenue consistently, growing their revenue, generating a lot of cash, and has low debt. So that, and it has a great leadership team. So that's kind of like the big difference. Like I feel okay. Like in one of my videos, I talked about it, saying that Microsoft is one of my biggest positions. It's like I said, too big in my opinion. It's like basically 30 or 35% of my portfolio. However, I'm okay with it because they give me a lot of value and dividends and generating income, net income and stuff like that. They're doing, fantastic in that aspect. You have Bitcoin that really doesn't return any value to you if the price doesn't go up, right? And even though we want every stock to go up, stocks can give you value in other things and book value and earnings. There's other ways, public companies, publicly traded companies, can give you value besides them just going up in price. And Bitcoin, doesn't have no type of way to. There's no dividends. There's no cash flow. There's, no debt. There's nothing. There's nothing to. There's nothing. It's not a company. It's just imaginary money that people are just buying, and that's kind of what a market is. But there's nothing to back it. However, because of the volatility and the gains that this has done since it came out, we can't ignore it. We're investors, right? So we have to capitalize on this. We're not just going to let this go to $1 million and us be stuck in our ways and not profit off of it, when it's easily we could easily double our capital, or at least make 100% return on investment. So I encourage people to invest in it now, too. I told my friends and stuff like that to invest in it. However, the way you should invest in it should be anywhere from 1 to 3% of your portfolio. You should not. This should not be 10% of your portfolio. This shouldn't be 15% of your portfolio. If you don't have some type of crazy appetite for risk, they should be anywhere from 1 to 3% of your portfolio. If you have a good portfolio and you want to take a little bit of risk and you want to capture some of this action, yes, of course, you definitely want to jump into Bitcoin. You want to have a little bit of Bitcoin, but you don't want this to be 100% of your portfolio. Can it double? Yes. If you did put 10,000 in this, is there a chance of this doubling? Yes. Is there a chance that one day you just wake up and Bitcoin's at zero? Yes. The chances of that happening with the SPY, the Qs, Amazon, Apple, you just waking up and the price is zero, it's almost impossible. But when it comes to Bitcoin, that is a possibility that you need to be comfortable with. So that's why I always say anywhere from 1 to 3% of your portfolio, you want to, have invested. What I do, and you don't have to do what I do because I'm not no financial manager. I'm not no advisor or anything like that. But I believe that my investment in Bitcoin is is like maybe 1.5% or less than a percent. I'll have to double check. But it's nothing too crazy that if I woke up and Bitcoin was at zero, I wouldn't panic and I wouldn't be upset. I would just it is what it is. Um, so that's like what I think about Bitcoin. I do think people should invest in it. These are my cases. This is what I believe that Bitcoin will be getting to. I believe it will definitely get to 240. Based off of the studying of the analytics that I did, and I studied some patterns and I noticed some things. I think from the lows right now, I believe, well, I'm always going to go with my base case scenario, but if you're super bullish, this is where it could potentially go to. But I believe that the lows that we put in are going to be the lows. And I believe that in 210 days, that we're going to be at 156. And I'll make, based off of where I bought Bitcoin, I will make over 100% return. That's the reason I bought it. I would only buy Bitcoin to make, with potential to make over 100%, because I know there's a possibility of me losing 100%, and I'm comfortable that with this. So that's why I'm investing it, right? If it was a stock and stuff, if it was a stock, sometimes I would jump into a stock if I could see myself making 25%, because you know, I don't see myself losing more than 25% in a stock that I'm investing in. But it can happen, but I just don't see it as a really probable um, case. But for Bitcoin, I definitely could see one day, I could wake up and maybe that thing's at zero, or maybe it's even, it's at, under 60,000. And I need to be okay with that. So when you're investing into Bitcoin, you need to understand the risk that comes with it. So I believe, based off the patterns that I've seen, the numbers, how far it's dropped, how long it stayed down before it hit a new all-time high. Um, I think 210 days is where we're gonna. I think in 210 days, I think that's is the price that it's gonna be at 156,000. I can't wait. Right now, the current price is at around 78,000, close to 79,000, and it's been 76 days since we had that low. Since we got above that low, and we have a couple. We still have some more days, so it's gonna be fun to see if my thesis on this will be correct. Um, So maybe this will age like wine. Hopefully, I'm hoping to make a 100% return. That would be pretty cool. That would be like my first 100% return. Usually, my biggest one I think was like maybe 40% is my biggest return on an individual investment. That's pretty cool. I would love this to be my first 100% because if it's my first 100%, I'll continue doing what I'm doing, investing 1 to 3% of my portfolio. And the cool thing about it, while my portfolio is continue to increase, and I'll give you guys the update on my portfolio at the end of this month. You know, the positions that the amount of money I'll be able to invest into Bitcoin will be more. Um, so yeah, those are my price targets. I do believe in even my bearish case, I do believe that this will get back to 100. We will get back all to all-time highs. Um, so I hope you guys picked up a little bit of Bitcoin, not too much. And if you guys have anything else you guys want me to make a video about, my next video is going to be about the SPY and why the SPY is basically the one of the best investments and why we should always ignore the noise and buy it. So see you guys for the next one. Keep an eye out on that next video. Subscribe, leave a comment, hit me if you need me.